It'll be near freezing. Next storm that comes in over the weekend is in the form of rain. On the Money Matters Radio Network, I'm Mark Rosenthal.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Despite overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, time is running out for Congress to pass the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, which will keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 52886 and ask Congress to bring this bill to a vote now. AM radio is too important to let this moment pass us by.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to STOP.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
My name is Dale Pazinski. I volunteer with United Way to help the homeless in my community learn computer skills and build a basic resume. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer, Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. Mike, the big one that people tend to focus on, and it's an important one, is identity theft. Let's first define what identity theft is.
Yeah, well, I think it's also fairly misunderstood because some people have a vision of, a big criminal ripping off your identity, and it's not usually done that way. But identity theft is using someone's social security number or, identifying their bank account numbers to be able to imitate them and therefore gain access to their funds in some way, shape, or form.
And there are some things that people can start to do in order to potentially protect themselves against identity theft, but it's a hard one because there's so many different potential entry points.
Well, there's been so many data breaches too, right? If you work for the federal government, your information's been breached. If you have ever had anything through Experian, you've been breached at some point in the past. And so if somebody really wants to buy your social security number, it's unfortunately not terribly difficult to do. But obviously storing documents in a safe place so they can't be misplaced, being careful and not using things like public Wi-Fi is a big one to avoid using. And then skimming credit card information is very common these days. And so to the extent you're able to not swipe a credit card, instead use the pay to touch, that can help things along when it comes to avoiding this.
Our guide is titled The 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, it's The 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and the way to request the guide is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The calendar is turned, and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical condition, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti.
Good morning and welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's a Tuesday here and markets are opening in positive territory after what's been quite a bit of volatility so far in 2025. Not significantly to the downside, but about 5% to the downside really since the peaks that were reached back in December on markets. And while last week was jobs week here on the Financial Exchange, this week's all about inflation. At 8:30 a.m. this morning, we received the Producer Price Index. Tomorrow, we will see the more heavily looked at Consumer Price Index. And after a stronger than anticipated jobs report, I think markets and investors care quite a bit about these. Well, frankly, a lot more about the CPI than the PPI, but nonetheless, they care about both of them as we head in. Mm-hmm. We'll also be covering what I think is the most local story that we've ever covered on the Financial Exchange regarding a vote in the town of Needham, where we are broadcasting from, regarding housing zoning. So that'll be the most local coverage that I think we've ever done. But let's start in on inflation for this week. And before we get to the PPI report, let's just talk about the two reports in general, what they seem to indicate, and what investors seem to be caring about at this stage of this market right now, Mark, because it doesn't seem to be recession concerns.
No, it doesn't, and we'll get to that, I think, and why it might be a mistake to ever too heavily discount the possibility of an economic slowdown. We don't have to use the dramatic term recession. We could just talk about the ebbing and flowing of the business cycle. But back to CPI, back to inflation generally, and why we care. It's come down a lot, as you and Chuck Zada talk about a lot on this show over the past 2 years. We don't have to get into why it went up so much. Special factors due to COVID, monetary authorities waiting too long to stamp it out. But it's come down a lot. Over the past year, the Fed's target is what now? About 2.5%. I'm rounding, I think, down just a little bit. I think most would consider that to be pretty low and stable. Mm-hmm. We're not all freaking out about inflation day to day. No. So in a sense, the Fed's done its job. And in another sense, the Fed's gotten lucky. There are divisions among economists.
Dueling arguments on which one
Right.
it is, but regardless, tough to argue with results.
And this is almost always the case. We're still arguing about the causes of the Great Depression and what helped resolve it. So there'll never be a definitive answer. Let's just say where we are today is basically where we wanted to be, but it took a long time. So where does the Fed go from here? This is what these CPI reports that we pay so much attention to here on the financial exchange, and everybody in finance is hanging on every word of. This is why it's important. The Fed needs to strike the right balance between short-term growth and short-term price pressures. Those things, you can just think about them as inflation and unemployment. They're in perfect tension in the short term. 9 out of 10 economists would agree with that statement.
Right. So I've described this market as bad news is good news economy right now, and bad news is good news market. That doesn't quite apply to inflation because high inflation is pretty much uniformly bad news and will be received as bad news by the market. But what I meant by that is when you saw indications that the economy is doing well over the last few weeks here, you've had markets sell off, and the jobs report was one of those indications where we created 100,000 more jobs than were anticipated, and the unemployment rate dropped down. I think most would look at that as, hey, that's a sign of a robust economy, and it is, but investors took it poorly because it seems to insinuate the Fed will have a tougher time bringing rates down in the face of higher growth and
You don't
inflation.
want an economy that's running too hot. If you keep that general principle in mind and keep that tension between inflation and unemployment in mind, you won't get distracted.
So at 8:30 a.m. this morning, the producer price index was released. Again, this is not consumer-facing prices. There are many that would point to it and say, look, it does feed into what we look at for the overall inflation. But like I said, it is not a heavily traded on or looked at report. But it does factor into, for instance, a number of the different inflation pieces that go into the PCE index, which the Fed looks at closely. Expectations, according to MarketWatch, were for a 0.4% monthly increase on the overall PPI and a 0.3% increase on the core. What we got instead was a fair bit lower. We saw 0.2% bump on the PPI and 0.1% on core. And so, again, you may be able to read that markets are slightly positive on this better than expected inflation news, but this is I think less looked at and less forecasted series compared to the consumer price index. So I wouldn't read too much in terms of reaction here.
It doesn't help you predict. A researcher would say PPI doesn't help you predict CPI better than past values of CPI alone. It just doesn't add much richness to your forecasting. Right. So it gets downplayed.
So tomorrow, however, we will receive the CPI. Yeah. And the consumer price index expectations right now, 0.3% for both core and regular CPI, 2.9% year over year, 3.3% if you're stripping out food and energy. And as a few pieces point out here, you can take a look at what we refer to as implied volatility, right? How much volatility people are expecting upon that release of that CPI report tomorrow. And piece here, I believe, from Bloomberg, that traders are bracing for the S&P's busiest CPI day since March of 2023. What exactly are they saying with that? What do they mean busiest day for CPI since 2023? It seems to be an insinuation about how much they expect markets to move one way or another.
Yeah, they use the VIX as the proxy for implied, because you can't really see it, risk. The so-called VIX is just an estimate of how much the S&P will fluctuate day to day, 30 days out. It's an estimate of how much bumpier the ride might be, said differently, in a month. That's all it is.
Yep.
So I guess as I read it, and I'll admit I only kind of scanned this one because I thought, this isn't that interesting to tell you the
Fair enough.
truth.
Yeah.
It's not.
Single-day volatility is not terribly intriguing.
No, it isn't. That can be influenced by a lot of different things. Mike, I don't think any one inflation report is going, unless it comes on the day before a Fed meeting, and it might change the outcome or their view, which it never will because the die is already cast. I don't think any one is or should be meaningful. You need to take, I jokingly call you Mike Average, moving average Armstrong, even though what you do is not really a moving average, but it sounds better.
And I'm very average.
I wouldn't say that. But you like to take the last few months. You do this all the time. I don't find it annoying, but a lot of people probably do. I'm just telling you what I've heard.
Yeah.
You take the past few months of data, you smooth it, and then you sort of, and that's what taking a few months does. It smooths it. Like when you weigh yourself, you don't take one day's weight and say, I met my goal. You take it over the average. You smooth it by taking a week and then taking an average, taking a week's worth and taking an average. That's what we like to do here with data. Don't look at just one data point. Look at the last few months, then annualize that if you like to make it more relatable. But you can't infer a trend from just one. That said, a big jump would freak everybody out.
Yeah. In any case, the reason that Bloomberg wrote this piece is because the options moves on the CPI report on Wednesday are indicating that investors, for one reason or another, are paying a lot of attention to this one. And it's probably because of the hotter-than-expected jobs report and curiosity as to how that's going to play out. It's got an incoming Trump administration weeks after.
That's part
whatever
of it.
Whatever the reason is, investors are clearly paying a lot of attention to this CPI report. And so, according to this reporting, the S&P 500 is expected to move 1% in either direction on January 15, according to implied volatility. And so I think the message that I take away here is I don't know what the CPI report is going to indicate, but if you get a beat or a miss, you could have markets moving more than 1% in either direction in reaction to that report that comes out tomorrow.
And that's rational. I don't want to minimize that. It's new information.
Sure.
Stocks should react to it. That's a bedrock principle of asset pricing. Of basic finance theory. So I don't want to diminish that, but as everybody who does what we do knows very well, it doesn't, as you and Chuck like to point out, doesn't make a trend. But a big surprise, it could be measurement error, but CPI is pretty precise, or it could be hinting at something problematic.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about the incoming Trump administration. Piece today from Market Watch. Is Donald Trump inheriting the best economy in history? Sure would be surprising to many given that he was elected on the premise that it was one of the worst economies in history, but we'll talk about that next here on the Financial Exchange.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we're covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
As technology continues to evolve, financial frauds and scams are becoming more regular and pose a serious threat to your finances. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and understanding how to identify these scams can reduce your risk of becoming a victim. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, where we offer information that may help you become more aware of these issues and allow you to take the necessary precautions to avoid a big problem. From identity theft to Ponzi schemes and ransom attacks, the new guide will focus your attention on practical tips tips to protect your financial health. Call 800-393-4001 and request your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001 and ask for your free copy of 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. And if you act now, you can take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and get a $250 per person airline credit when you book a minimum 5-night stay at participating hotels. Go to visitusvi.com and use code VIBE2025 to reserve your trip today. Take your next vacation to St. Croix in America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com and use code VIBE2025 to book your trip. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
As Donald Trump takes office, there's a piece from Market Watch here on the economy that he's inheriting. And I'm going to quote here, with low unemployment, rising incomes, and inflation down to a third of its peak in 2022, raises the question of just how good an economy President-elect Donald Trump stands to inherit when he enters office in less than 2 weeks. Obviously, if you listened to anybody across the campaign trail, there was an argument of quite the opposite. It's a terrible economy that needs to be fixed in some way, shape, or form, and I'm the man to do it, which is, let's be honest, a pretty successful argument if you're running for president. It's always about the economy. But you do take a look at presidents taking office over the last several decades, and there's few and far between that, if you're willing to look at just the unemployment rate, for example, inherited a better one. So Nixon did in 1969, unemployment rate of 3.4%. George W. Bush did in 2001, inherit one pretty similar at 4.2%. But other than that, not a whole lot of experience. The last time Donald Trump took office, January 17, unemployment was sitting around 4.7%. Likewise, CPI, there were several where it was in the same general area. But I don't think trying to argue who inherited the single best economy at that moment in time is going to be an easy argument to make, because structurally economies are just significantly different when you're comparing one from the 1960s to today.
Yeah, that's why you wouldn't use the unemployment rate, because the natural rate, the rate that the economy is capable of providing jobs at, does change over time. So I think that's a great point. As I think about some of the examples you mentioned, the economy was slipping into recession in 1969 and in 2001. We know that now. Yeah. The unemployment rate, that was a lagging indicator, didn't pick up on that.
Right. So could we be slipping into unemployment or recession with no idea right now? Yeah.
There are industrial production, capacity utilization, Atlanta Fed GDP now, those are all ebbing or sliding. So if we're in recession in 6 months, you would point in retrospect to those and say there were warning signs. So you never really know. I think the best you can do is try to agree on a set of criteria that you'll use to judge the economy at a given point in time. And I think it's okay to use a combination of inflation, unemployment, and GDP, the so-called holy trinity that everybody learns about in first year macroeconomics, the study of the whole economy. But don't put too much stock in the persistence of those things. Don't assume that because GDP growth has been strong, which it has over the past year, up way more than trend or potential, depending on your preferred measure, that it's going to continue to be. Don't assume that if we go into recession in 6 months, that it's necessarily Donald Trump's fault, just like the 2001 recession was definitely not George W.'s fault, and the recession arguably in 70 was not Richard Nixon's fault.
I would also argue, I mean, look, you always want an American economy that is strong. If just generally speaking, I think most Americans want a strong U.S. economy. If you are a president who's trying to leave a legacy on the overall system, you don't really want to inherit a really strong economy. You don't leave a whole lot of room for improvement when unemployment's already in the low fours, inflation's already in the low mid twos. You want one where unemployment's sitting at 6 and say, look at everything that I was able to do in order to bring it all down. And so, look, we've talked a lot about the challenge that Donald Trump faces here. He ran for president on a platform of being the change and, making America greater. You can say great again. You can say whatever you want. When you're inheriting an economy that is already, I'm not going to say so good. I'm going to say already at what most would describe some of its capacity limitations. When you look at the unemployment rate, when you look at how much lower inflation can get, it's going to be a unique challenge that Donald Trump did not face the first time in office. He had an economy in 2017 where unemployment was higher. Inflation was much lower.
All those things were trending in the right direction. Obama left him, and I'm not crediting Obama. I think these things are far more attributable to long-run forces in the so-called business cycle. But he inherited a good economy in 2017, and it did get better because he goosed it with Paul Ryan's tax cuts and with deregulation, which I think probably helped. A lot of studies show that it did.
And there's a lot of the question that I don't have the answer to, and nobody does, is there still additional capacity to absorb things like that in 2025?
So given that inflation's already uncomfortably a little bit high, how do you increase the productive capacity of the economy? Said differently, echoing the 1980s, how do we grow the supply side? How do you bring more laborers into the labor force? How do you increase productivity? These are supply. How do you make energy prices cheaper? These would be supply side effects that you want to bring about.
So we've talked about it at length. I think there's any number of different ways to judge this administration on how they do. Yeah. We've talked about, Mark said the Holy Trinity, right? Unemployment, inflation. What was the third one? GDP. So, I
think I should say the Trinity so as to not offend my fellow Catholics.
Those are, I think, as reasonable as any other. Other people have texted us, regulation. It's tougher to measure regulation. We talked about there is an actual federal registration that you can actually.
Plus, regs fell under Carter. I mean, how many, or many did anyway. I don't think the average person's going to relate.
That's
to
a tough one to measure. You, I suppose, could look at interest rates if you are particularly moved by how a president controls interest rates, which they don't. So I don't know how you would attribute that to one person. You could talk about homes for sale, businesses started. There are a few of these that are actually measurable, but I think that's important when we judge any administration on their performance is, okay, how do we set those standards? And doing so ahead of time, I think, is also important.
I think I think it's futile. I think people will ultimately decide whether or not they just feel better in some
agreed, and that's how people will vote.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying they're gonna.
But I think
they don't care about
that. But we need. to
well,
be better.
Sure. But you're always going to upset somebody by telling. When you tell them the Biden economy has been reasonably strong, with the exception, and it's a big one, of out of control inflation early on. Some people get really upset. They tell you you're not living in the real world. You're looking at statistics that nobody else pays attention to, and I don't disagree with any of that. The statistics we cite were not made to serve as a thermometer for the health of the average American family or even the economy. They were just meant to get a handle on why there was such a shortfall in production during the 1930s. We had all these unused resources and all this unemployment at the same time. It made no sense to economists.
If you have other ideas about how you are going to judge the state of the economy over the next 4 years, you're welcome to text the show at 617-362-1385. We're happy to bring up your ideas on air.
And then we should track it. Keep a scorecard. Get a consensus of measures, and then by the measures that you picked, here's how he's doing.
The other piece that is completely ignored by this piece here is he's also, Donald Trump, inheriting an economy with a deficit, the likes of which we have never seen, and I think most economists would expect we would never have gotten to at this stage. And I have no idea what to do with that information. But I think it does speak to the health or lack of health of the economy when you talk about deficits that are ballooning at a pace of 6 to 7% a year.
Yeah.
Quick break. We have got Wall Street Watch next with a full market update. We'll be right back on the Financial Exchange.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
This is Tucker Silva, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And we're talking about last-minute nursing home lessons that can help save your assets. What can be done last minute to save your home and your liquid assets when one spouse is entering the nursing home?
So with a married couple, you do have more options than as a single person. But with a married couple, your home is not at risk because the community spouse living in the home is allowed to keep the home. Doesn't matter the value, as long as they're living there, it's not countable and non-lienable. They also give the healthy spouse about $135,000 to keep. It's not a lot when you think of the big picture, but all the rest of the money would be at risk. But at least a quick last-minute way of protecting all those other dollars, all over and above that $135,000, would be to basically transfer the assets, those excess assets, to the community spouse, which, by the way, is not a disqualifying transfer, so no 5-year waiting period. And then once once that community spouse gets those assets, depending on their age, they can buy what is known as a Medicaid qualifying annuity. These are special annuities. They convert the excess assets into an income stream, and then it's no longer an asset, keeping the community spouse over assets. Then the community spouse and the sick spouse are under assets, and they're eligible for Medicaid.
Cushing & Dolan has written a brand new guide, especially for those of you who have put off doing your planning and are now faced with a last-minute nursing home situation. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. 866-848-5699. Or if you prefer, you can simply go to their website, legalexchangeshow.com, and request it there.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, markets are trading modestly higher as investors ready for a key inflation reading tomorrow morning when the Consumer Price Index is posted. This morning, we saw the Producer Price Index climb 0.2% last month, lighter than forecast of 0.4%. At the moment, the Dow is up by about 1/3% or 152 points. S&P is up by 1/4% or 15 points, and the NASDAQ is up by 1/3% or 63 points. Russell 2000 up over 1%, trading 26 points higher. 10-year Treasury yield is down by 1 basis point at 4.79%, and crude oil is down 1 2/3%, trading at $77.54 a barrel. Southwest Airlines confirmed to CNBC that the airline is pausing corporate hiring and promotions, suspending most of its summer internships, and going without some employee team-building events that date back to the 80s in order to cut costs and improve margins. Southwest shares are up by 0.75%. Meanwhile, shares in KB Home jumping by 3% after the home builder beat fourth quarter earnings and revenue expectations. The company also said home deliveries jumped 17% year over year. Elsewhere, Signet Jewelers stock is sinking 22% after the parent company 2K Jewelers and Zales cut its quarterly outlook, prompted by a disappointing holiday shopping season as consumers gravitated to lower price points. Teladoc Health announced a partnership with Amazon where its diabetes, hypertension, and weight management programs will be available on the e-commerce platform. That stock up by 1%. And tomorrow morning will mark the official kickoff to fourth quarter earnings season, where banks including JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, BlackRock, and Citigroup will all report ahead of the opening bell. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
I've got the scam of the week here for you that Tucker just sent us, Mark. This one is particularly easy to spot, I think, and is a little bit shocking, but I think we need to continue to bring these up. According to reporting from TMZ, a woman in France has lost $850,000 in a romance scam tricked by fake pictures of Brad Pitt. The 53-year-old woman was married to a millionaire at the time, fell for a romance scam in 2023. Pictures of Brad Pitt from a hospital bed because he was apparently undergoing cancer treatment is what she fell for here, along with a series of text messages from the scammer. She divorced her husband at the time, was sitting on millions of dollars in cash, and sent Brad Pitt 830,000 euro, believing that she was in a relationship with him in order to pay for his cancer treatment, because obviously Brad Pitt not only fallen on cancer, but hard times in this scam, financial hard times. Look, I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but I think clearly if you're a 53-year-old person who falls for this type of thing, then you have some stuff going on in your mind that isn't working terribly well.
I just need to cancel a check really fast. Excuse me. Hold on.
Okay, so what are the lessons to be learned from this? I think everyone listening here is like, I would never fall for any of this, and you are probably right. I think the lesson to be learned here is we all probably know somebody who is going through some form of crisis or has gone through some form of crisis over the years, and they are more susceptible to fall to this when they are going through some sort of mental health crisis.
Sure.
The times where I have seen people fall victim to scams that are, albeit a lot less obvious than this one, have been moments like, I just lost my husband and I'm going through a ton of grief and I fell for something that I wouldn't have otherwise. I just lost a family member. I'm going through a divorce. So if you know those people and you're responsible for their well-being and you know that they are going through those moments, those are the times when you have to be especially alert, because I've seen it with people firsthand where they are intelligent, smart, well-educated people who still fall for this type of things, and it can literally wipe them out, as I'm sure it just did here. And so I don't know that I have any other tips for this. Like, this is a very obvious one that you take a look at the pictures and it's like, okay, well, that's pretty obviously AI and not Brad Pitt sitting in a hospital room. So how would you fall for that? And I can't answer that question, but I will tell you that there are a lot of less obvious ones that people fall for every single day.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind, and this is a little self-interested because we are in the business of helping people manage their money. But if you know someone is financially vulnerable or psychologically vulnerable or prone to being more gullible than maybe they should be, make sure they have a good relationship with their bank or with a financial advisor.
Yeah.
Someone who can do a callback to a trusted relative or friend in the event that they want to release a big amount of money. I mean, we're all going to have to make a decision for a parent or a loved one at some point.
The ones that I see that are immensely frustrating, too, is when somebody's clearly dealing with – I know a few people, actually, who have had to deal with relatives who are later in life and very obviously to them dealing with dementia, and it's changing their personality in some way, shape, or form. I've seen gambling because of this. I've seen online subscriptions or donations to really bogus charities and ruining themselves financially and fighting over control of their financial situation, because that is, I think a very normal thing that people deal with, is they want to have that autonomy, and that autonomy makes them throw money away, vast sums of money away at things that are very obviously useless resources that they wouldn't be doing if they weren't suffering from that form of dementia. But the act of trying to take control away from that person is, it's heartbreaking. Anyway. Sorry, have to move on, but we see this stuff too often. I couldn't help but bring it up. The Trump team is apparently studying gradual tariff hikes under emergency powers. The plan would be to boost import duties by 2 to 5% a month on trade partners. Supporters include a number of Trump advisors on the subject of tariffs. I have no idea what to make of this story, because the proposal has not even been presented to Trump, apparently, so I won't be shocked if Trump tweets or posts on Truth Social that this is a bunch of lies made up by Bloomberg and the fake media. But here is the point that I will take it from it, is I hear far too many people saying things like, I hear what you're saying, but I just don't think he's serious about all these tariffs, and I don't think it'll actually come to pass. Or, I think he's serious about the tax cuts and the changes to Social Security, but there's no way he's going to put tariffs on all these countries. And maybe you're right. I don't know. But when we see story after story of this, I become more and more convinced that he and his incoming administration are fundamentally serious about the power of tariffs that they want to utilize in their administration. And I don't know how it's all going to work out. Generally speaking, almost every economist thinks it's a bad idea, but he does have smart, well-educated PhD economists who are advising him that it may work.
Mike.
They're
agree. Smarter than me, but they're fringy. They're not. They don't do a lot of published research, which is the standard by which economists judge one another fairly or unfairly. So my first reaction to Steve Moran and Peter Navarro, and hey, these are Harvard PhDs. Who am I, a little master's degree, to say that they're wrong? But it's not me being right. It's the whole profession versus. It's like people who sort of deny. I hate to bring up a sensitive issue, but there are climate change deniers. Some of them have physics PhDs, but they're like a fraction of a percent of researchers in the area. So I go with the 99.9. I don't go with the 0.1. The 0.1 could be right, but that's probably motivated. That's probably wishful thinking. So I think your statement, Mike, about the vast majority of economists hating tariffs, thinking there are better ways to achieve whatever goal it is you want to achieve, I tend to think they're probably right on this one.
My main point with all of this is, like you said, we will see what actually gets implemented. We will see what the effect is. Most economists agree that tariffs are a poor way to affect policy. And even the educated,
what is the
informed
policy,
people,
by the way? What's he trying to achieve here? Is it revenue? Is it making things here? Is it both? Because you can't have both. If tariffs are good at getting things made here, you're not going to get revenue. So I'm confused about that too.
There's a lot of lack of consistency to what the argument is. Sometimes it's we support this country too much, so we want you to spend more on your military. Other times it's, we want to have a competitive edge when it comes to manufacturing in the U.S. or just other reasons. So I think it does run the gambit, but clearly he sees them as a tool to get partners or adversaries in line. And the more and more we read, the more and more fundamentally serious I think they are about those tools, regardless of the potential downsides to the U.S. economy. And that's an important consideration, too, is I acknowledge that Donald Trump himself hasn't talked about the downsides, but when you read pieces about his closest advisors, they acknowledge that there are downsides and potential real problems with this strategy that will need to be navigated, which is why I fundamentally take it pretty seriously that I think it's likely to happen. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about emerging markets. There's a well-written piece here today from the Financial Times about emerging markets specifically in 2025 and beyond. Quick break. We'll cover that next here on the Financial Exchange.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The average monthly cost for a private room in New England could double by 2040. So if you're not prepared to handle the increased costs of nursing home care, your assets may be at risk. Call Cushing & Dolan today and request their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. It'll help you understand how to protect your assets and allow you to enjoy your later years. An unexpected nursing home stay could significantly reduce your wealth and prosperity. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get your free guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't put off today what you might really need to do tomorrow. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
As technology continues to evolve, financial frauds and scams are becoming more regular and pose a serious threat to your finances. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and understanding how to identify these scams can reduce your risk of becoming a victim. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, where we offer information that may help you become more aware of these issues and allow you to take the necessary precautions to avoid a big problem. From identity theft to Ponzi schemes and ransom attacks, the new guide will focus your attention on practical tips to protect your financial health. Call 800-393-4001 and request your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001 and ask for your free copy of 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. consequences.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Piece in the Financial Times: pain coming for emerging markets from a Trump trade war. I think they make a pretty compelling case on this argument here, and that's in spite of the fact that when you take a look at valuations, we talk a lot about valuations right now because the S&P 500 in the United States is among the most expensive it has ever been, depending on how you're measuring it on a historical basis. Most people would say that the only times it's been in these areas are 2021 and early 2000s leading up to the dot-com bubble. And so when you take a look at many other parts of the world, you can make a pretty compelling argument that, hey, stocks in emerging markets, for example, are relatively more affordable, and why not? Financial Times, I think, lays out a pretty good case of why not. What do you think are the most compelling arguments for or against this investor bet, if you will, on EM?
Well, this piece is written by an asset manager who runs a lot of emerging market strategies, including fixed income. So the first thing that...
The writer is the head of emerging markets across asset strategy at UBS.
So I don't know if he actually runs money or if he's just the public face of the emerging markets teams. You always get to ask, so who am I listening to or reading? And what's their background? Do they have an axe to grind? This person may have a little bit of an axe to grind because they run strategies that would benefit from a move toward. They advocate, if you're investing in emerging markets, who are they? It's South Korea, it's Southeast Asia, ex-Japan.
You've heard of the BRICS.
Yes. Are they still all emerging, or did
Brazil,
any of them
Russia, India, China,
they're all
Korea.
still emerging. They're all still emerging. But they're countries that it's a rather condescending term. It's also a rather optimistic term. It implies that they will get somewhere.
True.
They're on the way up. Somebody made this point a long time ago. It's not mine. I wish I could take credit. So rather than call them the third world, which we used to in the 1980s, rather than call them the developing world, which makes them sound somehow regressed, we call them emerging because it's more politic, if you like. Maybe it's, but anyway, so think about that. It is in and of itself a marketing term. You probably have some exposure to emerging markets in your 401k if you own an asset allocation fund, like a target date fund. They tend to own a smidge of emerging markets. If you have a pension fund, the people that run it, the investment consultants and the pension board, they probably allocate to emerging market strategies. So you may not think this is relevant for you, but it is. You don't always have control over these decisions, but we all have exposure to emerging markets directly or indirectly. The point of this piece is tariffs are going to hurt emerging markets because they're big exporters. I'm summing it up at a very high level, but that's how I read it. And of course that's true. But our job as fiduciaries, people in a position of trust, stewards of other people's money, is to diversify the money that investors entrust to us. And part of that is looking at the global opportunity set, of which EM, emerging markets, is what that stands for, is a subset. So as an asset allocator, so to speak, Mike, I have to consider emerging markets.
Sure.
But over the short term, sure. If we impose big tariffs on, if we impose them indiscriminately, it's going to hurt emerging markets, maybe disproportionately.
I think the compelling case that I will make, like the author makes a compelling case against emerging markets, basically that look, if you're talking about a trade war and tariffs, it could accelerate decelerate China in particular. China's been kind of exporting disinflation across a lot of the world. What does that mean for inflation globally? What does it mean for growth in a number of developing economies if interest rates are higher in the U.S.? Like, these are real problems that many will face. I think I always try and bring it back to the average person and what should anyone be doing. And for many people, the answer is quite possibly nothing. But I always ask people, can you pretty easily summarize how your retirement investments are allocated today? Like, if I asked you that question of, hey, how is your investment portfolio aligned? Would you be able to describe it in 3 to 5 sentences? Do you know, for example, like Mark mentioned, in your overall portfolio, how much of it is invested overseas? How much of it is invested in emerging markets, in China in particular? Those are getting pretty granular with the data points, and I'm not saying that every single person should understand that. But if you in particular have a big grievance with the idea of investing overseas and you haven't looked at your own investments to see if they align with your own personal goals, then that's concerning. Likewise, if you can't really describe what the purpose of your investments are and how they align with your personal plans. I want to retire at 62. I'm going to have to pay for health insurance for a few years. Does my investment portfolio account for all of that? That's another, I guess, red flag that I would point out there. If you have questions along these lines and you're trying to just educate yourself on the subject of how to look at and answer these questions, please give the folks at Armstrong Advisory Group a call. We sit down with our clients. We build out a financial strategy for their future that is plain and easy to understand because it's about your personal goals, not some high in the sky piece that's written about how emerging markets are going to perform. We'll sit down with you. We'll develop a strategy that meets your goals and then develop the investments alongside it to fit those goals. Give us a ring at 800-393-4001. Again, that's the Armstrong Advisory Group. You can reach us by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
In our hyper-local story of the day, the town of Needham, where we are broadcasting our program from, is going to be the latest town to vote over the Massachusetts MBTA zoning rules. It's a little bit different in the town of Needham in particular. There were a couple plans that were proposed in Needham specifically. The town initially decided to go above and beyond what the MBTA communities law requires by allowing zoning for up to 3,300 units. I think they were only required to do 1,700, but it passed via the elected select board in the town, and then the residents brought it up for basically a ballot to be discussed and to have a vote over it, which is occurring today. Milton voted down their proposal. Just being a resident as well of Needham, I can tell you that it has been highly contentious, especially if you look at social media.
I heard somebody sneered at somebody at Needham this morning.
Oh, it was,
I heard
it
got pretty ugly.
Funny.
Somebody didn't say God bless you when somebody sneezed.
We talk so much about housing affordability, and I'll just be fascinated to hear and see what happens in a small town like Needham where this issue of housing affordability and zoning is being brought up, and whether or not it'll be
happening everywhere.
Hypocritical. Quick break. Markets remain open and slightly in positive territory. We will have a full recap next on the Financial Exchange.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Tucker Silva, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange legal quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about last-minute nursing home lessons that can help save your assets. Todd, more and more people are providing in-home care for their loved ones. Is there anything a care provider can do that would be beneficial to them or the family?
So if you're already providing care for an individual at home, and more people, as you said, are in fact doing that, the best thing to do is to set up a personal care contract, right? A personal care contract is something that allows you to get paid by your family member, and as long as you report it on your income tax return and prepare a personal care contract, make sure you get an elder law lawyer to help you prepare that contract because it's got to be done right. But if you do those two things, get the contract and provide the care and put the income on your income tax return, the transfers are non-disqualifying transfers. So even if you don't make the 5 years, those dollars that you're moving will not need to be returned and they will be protected. Also, while you're doing that, set up the trust and get the 5-year clock started. Put some assets in because you just never know if you're going to make it or not, and you would always want to have that 5-year clock running to protect your assets.
Cushing & Dolan has written a brand new guide, especially for those of you who have put off doing your planning and are now faced with a last-minute nursing home situation. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. You can call 866-848-5699, or you can simply request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. Once again, simply call 866-848-5699, or get it from their website at legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
With digital technology continuously evolving, hackers are coming up with incredibly elaborate schemes to commit fraud, which could put your financial well-being at risk. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and in today's landscape, it's critically important that you beware of the potential dangers that exist. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and its purpose is to help you understand what steps you can take to avoid becoming a victim. Whether it's identity theft, inheritance scams, or Ponzi schemes, this guide can educate you about these risks, giving you the chance to make any necessary changes to your overall financial strategy. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That number once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Marc Fandetti.
Morning, welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It is Mark, Mike, and Tucker with you on a Tuesday where markets are mixed as they have been many trading days of 2025 so far. The Dow currently up 40 points, 0.1%. S&P off 9 points, a little bit more than 0.1%. And the NASDAQ off 38 points or 0.1%. Barrel of oil, West Texas crude is going for $78 a barrel as oil prices and Russian sanctions in particular stay in focus. This was a piece that we had yesterday that I don't think we covered, is the Biden administration imposing some new possible sanctions on those who refine Russian oil. And so a lot of questions as to whether India and China can continue to buy in the volumes that they have been without being subject to U.S. sanctions, or whether or not an incoming Trump administration will maintain those. Yield on the 10-year Treasury coming down slightly, sitting just under 4.8%, 4.792 as we open up the 11 o'clock hour of trading here. Anything else catching your eye at the moment in markets, Mark?
No, not a lot to comment on today, though. As you point out, pretty much everything's just, you might describe it as little changed.
Yeah, so we
With
do
the
have
exception of oil, which is
right.
taking a breather.
We do have a big report coming out tomorrow on
Yeah, that could be
inflation, and markets have seemingly shifted their focus quite a bit from where we were in the summer and fall of last year, where there was a lot of talk of the unemployment rate and recession. All eyes now seemingly turned away from that and much more focused on specifically inflation again. Just a couple other data points to point out in terms of markets. We talked about oil prices. AAA national average on gas prices is sitting at $3.07. And the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, which I'm just going to continue to bring up relentlessly, for the general 30-year fixed, according to Mortgage News Daily, sitting at 7.26% for a jumbo, which, let's face it, here in New England is a contributing factor for a lot of folks, sitting at 7.44% on that fixed rate mortgage now. So not great for the spring housing season would be my guess, but we will see how that shapes up after the Super Bowl. Brings us to one of our pieces today. No one is talking about a recession. 4 red flags for markets to watch. I guess, Mark, first and foremost, would you agree nobody is talking about recession? And would you say that investors seem to be placing trades as though they are not concerned about recession? I think, going back to my good news, bad news comparison here, it certainly seems as though investors are far more concerned about inflation than they are recession right now.
Yeah, we work in financial markets as stewards of people's money, so I prefer financial market indicators. It's not just because I'm biased toward the things we deal with day to day, but it's because they're pretty reliable. They're not exclusively reliable. You need to look at other things, but stocks, so for example, are certainly not pointing toward recession.
Right.
Interest rates longer-term rates are going up. That could be a sign of an expected pickup in economic growth. It could be a lot of other things, too. It could just be uncertainty generally, worries about ballooning deficits and debt. It could be any number of things. But one of the possible culprits there is stronger economic growth, maybe because of tax cuts from the incoming administration, more spending, business-friendly deregulation, stuff like that. So I would agree that no financial market indicator is flashing any kind of recession signal. That's not to say, though, that some macroeconomic indicators haven't softened a bit. Mike, you never really know where the economy is going to be in 3 or there's a little bit of inertia. So 3 months, over 3 months, you're not likely to see drastic changes. But over a period of 6 months or a year, all bets are off. We all know that.
What do you suppose one is to do, like the average person is to do, with information like the one that we talk about all the time, where the price to earnings ratio on the S&P is at levels rarely seen in U.S. history, or the earnings yield on the S&P 500 is, I think the quote is 50% higher than the risk-free rate of return on U.S. 10-year Treasury yields, and that's been quite rare to happen. What is one to do with this information?
First of all, work with a professional to make sure you're interpreting it right, or be really confident in your ability to parse this stuff and understand what it means. If valuations are stretched, and they can be stretched for a very long period of time, as anyone who lived through the 90s knows. Heck, valuations have seemed stretched, with a couple of exceptions, for the last 30-some-odd years, Mike. Sure. But if they seem unusually stretched, if stocks seem unusually expensive relative to earnings, is what we mean by that.
Which I would argue they have for the last 18 months or so.
Right. So lousy timing tool, as you and Chuck Zada talk about a lot. But if you if you are personally concerned about stocks being too expensive or the economic outlook being unusually cloudy, that might affect the timing of a big investment. But your typical investor, like the people we work with and like us personally, should just continue to average in if you're in your accumulation years, or average out if you're in your decumulation years. Don't make a big move that could leave you overly exposed if there's a short-term shift in the market. In other words, don't make a big investment all at once if you can avoid it. I think this is a good rule of thumb under any circumstances.
Sure. Another side effect of all of this that I seem to be seeing right now is that balance of power between bosses and their employees seemingly having shifted over the course of the last year. You remember the stage of quiet quitting and all this stuff that was occurring when the job market was exceedingly tight seems to have gone away to a significant degree here over the last few months. And while I think most investors are still not concerned about recession, a lot of people in their jobs, I think, are worried about that possibility of losing that job compared to a couple of years ago where it seemed almost impossible to happen. And you're seeing this in a few different ways show up. I mean, one, you are seeing it in the return to office piece, right? When you hear about Amazon or JP Morgan Chase, they are still being met with resistance from their employees, but they're pushing forward in a way that they weren't previously.
They seem emboldened, yeah.
And in Amazon's case in particular, right? Like the very idea that they required all the people to come back and then realized that they didn't have enough office space for all those people, to me insinuates not only do they feel emboldened, but they were actually hoping they would get some quits on all of this that actually didn't come about, which once again speaks to, I think, people's perceptions of the state of the labor market right now and that shift of power. And so if you haven't personally felt it, I'll be interested, but I think especially in those jobs where there was a lot of flexibility on where and how you work, right? There's still shortages in areas like skilled manufacturing and truck driving and tradespeople. There's still those shortages that exist. But if you are working corporate for Southwest Airlines or Amazon or JP Morgan Chase, things have shifted over the last couple of years pretty significantly.
Well, they got away with murder. They didn't even live in the cities in which their offices were located. Yeah. They were going in like once a month or once a quarter for a meeting with their managers. So the pendulum has really swung. And we've talked about this, Mike, on and off for the last 3 years. We always said as soon as the labor market softens, or as soon as people forget about how moody millennials think about work-life balance.
It's Gen Z now. We're allowed to pick on Gen Z now because now they're in the labor force. They're the youngest generation in the labor force.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I can't think of any alliterative criticism of Gen Z, but we'll work on it. We knew that the pendulum would swing.
Yeah.
This was
and it started to. And the concerning piece to me, again, who knows? But in Amazon's case, right, I generally think that the people who organize Amazon and think about logistics of their workforce are probably pretty well informed. And so when they called all their people back to the office and then publicly announced that, oops, we don't have enough office space for all of you, to me, there's only one conclusion. Either they are complete morons, which I just said they aren't, or they thought more people would quit when they asked them to come back. And they were banking on more people quitting so that they didn't have to do layoffs. So I find that, again, it's one company, but it is also the largest private employer in the nation or close to it. And to see them do something like that and be surprised by the dynamic shift is just really intriguing. And I think that's the only read I have on it is I don't think they're morons. So I think they knew that they didn't have enough office space and they thought more people would be quitting as part of this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have trivia for you, and then we want to talk about a surprising group of people contributing to Social Security and how a Trump policy could change the dynamics when it comes to Social Security's funding. Quick break. We'll be back on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other. and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
With digital technology continuously evolving, hackers are coming up with incredibly elaborate schemes to commit fraud, which could put your financial well-being at risk. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and in today's landscape, it's critically important that you beware of the potential dangers that exist. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and its purpose is to help you understand what steps you can take to avoid becoming a victim. Whether it's identity theft, inheritance scams, or Ponzi schemes, this guide can educate you about these risks, giving you the chance to make any necessary changes to your overall financial strategy. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and request our new guide called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams. That number once again, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Time now for trivia here on the Financial Exchange. On this day in 1984, Ray Kroc passed away at 81 years old. Kroc was the man responsible for turning a regional restaurant chain into the most profitable restaurant chain in the world. Trivia question today: which actor portrayed Ray Kroc in the 2016 hit movie The Founder? Once again, which actor portrayed Ray Kroc in the 2016 hit movie The Founder? Be the 8th person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the 8th correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will be our winner. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
The New York Times has a piece today on what I might consider to be the least compelling argument for why we should continue to do what we're doing on undocumented immigrants, but did surprise me. According to the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, which is a left-leaning tax research group, they found that undocumented immigrants paid an estimated $25.7 billion in Social Security taxes in 2022, which surprised the heck out of me. I didn't really understand how that could happen, and so I'll explain it because they outline how that actually works. Is many undocumented workers do not file tax returns. That is true, but many of them do. And instead of being paid in cash, many may just use a made-up Social Security number. They could use another person's Social Security number, and therefore that person is paying the FICA on their behalf, or they might use a number that was once valid. So maybe you had a work permit that expired and you are still using that number. The employer might not figure that out. In addition, the Internal Revenue Service back in 96 enabled people who are ineligible or who do not have Social Security numbers to legally file tax returns and comply with the tax laws. So, hey, I'm not complying with immigration law, but I want to comply with tax law for some reason. It allows me to do that. And so, according to this study, there was a good $25.7 billion in taxes that went into the Social Security Trust Fund in 2022 that would hypothetically dry up in the case that you deport undocumented immigrants. And this is pure cash with no liability because these same people can't collect benefits in the future. Like I said, that seems like a terrible reason to not reform immigration in our country, is the fact that we're getting paid off to not do it. But nonetheless, it is one more item that will potentially hit Social Security depending on how this all goes. That, again, I was just unaware of. It was not something that was on my radar.
No, and if the conclusion is don't deport because it will
hurt our Social Security benefits, like that seems confusing.
So we should double the flow of undocumenteds to shore up Social Security. There are probably better ways to ensure the solvency of Social Security long term.
A very easy similar one would be double the rate of documented immigration, because all of those people that work would legally pay into Social Security. They do. Yeah, that's true.
So you wouldn't get the free lunch. What they're basically saying is these people are basically working as indentured servants.
Paying into our retirement pension fund while not receiving benefits. It seems problematic.
I know that institutes are left and right leaning. I personally like Cato. Institutions are libertarian leaning. But a researcher shouldn't be left or right leaning. You should go with what the data tell you. Yes. I know they look into questions that are of interest to people who are left or right leaning, but it does worry me when everything that comes out of a so-called think tank
is left or right.
Supports the conclusion that they'd hope they would reach.
And to be clear, that institute is not arguing that, hey, this is a good reason to continue to allow this, but that is the subtext. And I think anybody that's reading it any reasonable person that's reading it would probably, I hope, conclude that that's a crappy argument to allow for undocumented immigration.
I mean, it's almost like saying,
there are plenty of moral arguments that I know people have come up with in their minds, and all of them are more compelling than this one to me.
Yeah, but but my landscapers is so cheap, I'm going to lose that if we throw out all the undocumented. Not to stereotype, but I think we all know they do lower skilled jobs. That'd be such a weak and insensitive argument.
I bring up this story more as a education on the Social Security Trust Fund because there's a lot of misinformation about it, right? Like, I don't think so. When Donald Trump was campaigning on the idea of I'm going to eliminate Social Security taxes on retiree benefits, the number of people that actually were aware that every penny of that tax goes back into the trust fund was like zero.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know it at the time either, and nor did any person that I brought it up with since
Guaranteed
then.
Trump didn't know that.
The fact that we have now we've passed the Social Security Fairness Act, which, if you're not familiar, allows you to collect more Social Security if you're also collecting a government pension or some sort or another.
That's a great idea.
Again, I can understand the arguments on either side. I think there are some cases where it's a ridiculous forfeiture of benefits. I think there are other cases where it's pretty compelling. But in either case, it was already passed. and there is no corresponding increase in revenue to the Social Security Trust Fund. These are all things that are going to, guess what? Bankrupt the fund a little bit sooner than anticipated. None of these in and of themselves are going to bankrupt it 5 years ahead of time, but that's where we are. That's where we are going.
7 years now until the trust fund can no longer pay the so-called trust fund.
I believe so.
So we have to go. The Social Security will have to go to Congress and ask for more money or changes. But we're 7 years now.
With let's be clear.
That deadline, right?
The rules as they are stated right now is in the event that Congress does not act, Social Security must just pay out what they are collecting, which is estimated to be around three-quarters. Benefit cuts.
To current retirees,
correct.
Not the prospective stuff
Correct.
that reformers have always talked
My
about.
personal opinion is there's no chance in hell that will ever happen, but that is how the law works today.
I didn't want to open that can of worms. I just wanted to point out that we're now 7 years out from that, from D-Day.
It's not that far away.
D-Day's not.
In the waning days of the Biden administration, the FTC is preparing to sue the largest U.S. apartment landlord over further hidden fees, and I don't understand why we're going after this right now, especially in the waning days of the Biden administration. But here's the story. The FTC, led by Lena Khan, going after Greystar Real Estate Partners, which is apparently the largest U.S. apartment landlord in the country, over what they deemed to be hidden fees. The government acknowledges, by the way, that Greystar has always disclosed fees to tenants in their lease agreements. They have always done so, is what the government acknowledges as part of this, or at least that's what the Wall Street Journal is reporting here, is that they acknowledge it. But starting in 2024, Greystar also began including a fee guide at the bottom of the apartment listing. So it appears to me that the FTC's case is that while you did disclose it in the 50-page lease document, all these other junk fees, such as pest control, trash services, performing tenant background checks, it was so far buried in the lease agreement that nobody knew about it, and therefore you're at fault in some way, shape, or form. And I just don't understand which judge is going to look at that and say, well, you had a legal contract with this person, you had the fees stated in that contract, that person then didn't read the contract, and you hit them with those fees, so you're at fault.
Yeah. How's it supposed to change practices? Like they're going to print it in bigger font next time?
Well, what they've done now is they've started putting it right on the listing. So when you see the listing for the apartment, the exact same language with a fee guide, that's more clearly
this is
disclosed.
A big victory for the forces of antitrust? Excuse me.
It's just confusing to me more than anything else as to why you would focus on this. Quick break. Trivia winner when we come back, followed by TikTok. That's next.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Can you afford $15,000 a month for a nursing home? If not, you need to call Cushing & Dolan and get their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't let a nursing home stay clean out your savings. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila. Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our guide this month is the 7 common financial frauds and scams. Mike, one of the ways that fraudsters potentially get your information is through something called a phishing, with a PH, scam. What is a phishing scam?
Yeah, again, a misconception here from a lot of folks. When they think about getting hacked, it's, some cyber criminal that's gaining access through a back door to your information. Usually that's not what happens to companies or individuals. It's usually, I fell victim to something that looked legitimate. And so a phishing scam would be when someone posing as somebody else, FedEx or the United States Postal Service is a common one. They send you a text or an email saying, you missed your package delivery, sign in here to get access to it. And you end up actually giving the fraudster your own personal information.
In terms of being vigilant against this, how do people start to protect themselves?
Quite honestly, it's so prevalent these days that my general feeling is that you have to treat every phone call, every text message, every email you receive on a day-to-day basis as though it is a phishing attempt. And until you're able to prove otherwise by calling that person at their known address, by looking up your bank's contact information rather than trusting that it's actually somebody from that bank, you have to assume that it is a fraudster, it is a scammer trying to get access to your information, and be vigilant and suspicious.
Our guide is titled The 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, and it details phishing scams and a host of other ones. You can request it by calling 800-393-4001. The guide has information to help you make more informed decisions to protect yourself and can be requested by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Text us at 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we are covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia question today was, which actor portrayed Ray Kroc in the 2016 hit movie The Founder? That would be Michael Keaton. Barbara from Braintree, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. We play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
We are rapidly closing in on a TikTok ban in the United States, which will go into place by January 19th, assuming the U.S. Supreme Court upholds the law. In terms of what that will actually mean, it does not mean that TikTok is suddenly illegal in the U.S. If you have it on your phone and you choose to use it, nobody's going to come after you and put you in jail. It does mean that Google and Apple, the main 2 app store providers in the United States, will be forced to take the app down in terms of the ability to download it. If you already have TikTok on your phone, it will likely still function for quite some time, but will no longer be getting pushed updates from the application, and data from the application will no longer go back to the parent company ByteDance. about usage of the app. There are, frankly, nothing more than rumors as far as I'm concerned that China is apparently, Chinese officials are evaluating a potential option that would involve Elon Musk acquiring the U.S. operations of TikTok if the company failed to fend off the fight from the U.S. government, according to people familiar with the matter. And so, one, I wouldn't expect this to develop quickly because, like I just mentioned, even though the app gets banned on January 19th, that does not mean it gets completely shut down. And so I think a lot of people are looking at this as, okay, they've got to get it done in 5 days. Likely not the case. In fact, I'd be more compelled to believe that it's going to something like this would happen if it went past the January 19th deadline, so that the company actually realizes that the United States is serious and Donald Trump is serious about it.
Is he? Do we know that? Does he have a public position on this?
He has asked the Supreme Court publicly to not ban
hold off
so that he can
use his vaunted negotiating skills.
Apparently, yeah. As I've brought up time and time again, I don't think we need to spend any time on why this is the case, but this is a company that is clearly a national security risk based on what data that they
talking about.
I know the data that they gather on smartphones across the United States and the 170 million users of TikTok. It allows you to paint a very easy picture of the state of the United States and influence people pretty easily. And so I tend to agree with the lawmakers that passed the ban. We will see if a TikTok sale were to come to place, and it's most certainly not a coincidence that Elon Musk is in talks for it.
No, that's probably his end game. I don't know enough about him to decide whether he is ruthless and just pursuing his own self-interest and making a big investment in the Trump campaign and now getting an office on the White House. I'll just call it the grounds, even though I think it's the little executive office building next door, whatever. So he's wormed himself into, rightfully so in some ways, he's a revolutionary entrepreneur, but wormed himself into the highest levels of power. And there are some people who think he's just doing it to make himself the world's first trillionaire, full stop. He doesn't care about anything. Like his invocations of free speech being sacrosanct. He doesn't seem to understand the First Amendment applies to governments, not to private entities.
Well, furthermore, he has no problem giving up any sort of free speech when doing business in China.
And when somebody says something that irritates him on his platform, he removes their check mark or something like that.
Right.
So behavior like that makes me wonder what's really going on with this guy. And I think this is probably his end game. Grow his empire, become the world's first trillionaire, be the power behind the throne indefinitely, and controlling social media, TikTok, X, and whatever else he decides to buy. Will cement that position for a generation. I assume that's his end game at this point.
According to Genworth, the average monthly cost for a private room in New England could double by 2040. So if you're not prepared to handle the increased cost of nursing home care, your assets may be at risk. Call Cushing & Dolan today and request their new guide called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. It'll help you understand how to protect your assets and allow you to enjoy your later years. An unexpected nursing home stay could significantly reduce your wealth and prosperity. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and get your free guide. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. Don't put off today what you might really need to do tomorrow. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
I've got a candidate for dumbest piece so far of 2025, which is easy to do since we're only 14 days in. But piece from the New York Times, why airlines are optimistic about 2025. Unemployment rate's low, people are spending money, they want to travel. Okay, check. They go on to say, the industry is enjoying a strong demand for tickets and rising profits, but it remains vulnerable to unexpected problems like a recession or a surge in inflation. You literally just described 99% of companies in the United States.
Sure.
Of course they're vulnerable to the problems like a recession or surge in inflation. Show me one company that is not subject to risks from recession or a surge in inflation. I can think of maybe like utility companies wouldn't be all that concerned about a recession or a surge in inflation. every other one that I can think of is worried about those two things. Can you think of any other companies that wouldn't be worried about those two?
Excited about inflation prospects as
or a
opposed to
recession?
worried?
Yeah, inflation prospects and recession.
They'll be excited about. I think about it.
I mean, alcohol sales maybe would be excited about a recession. They tend to fare pretty well when people are out of job. They tend to buy
I don't think they
more
actually
booze.
grow. They just fall by less.
Yeah. This is useless information as far as I am concerned.
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of insight. The larger point is the one that you made, that corporate leaders, and this is something that people who are down on the economy, but I guess as you said in the last hour, that's either that's the result of viewing the world through a strictly political lens or being politically opportunistic. No one seriously thinks the economy is bad unless their personal situation is really rough. I don't want to sound totally insensitive, but I don't think anybody seriously thinks the economy is bad. I think they're just performing for family, friends, and the media.
Southwest Airlines, in fact, is taking an actual approach to their concerns about the future, and so this is actually interesting to me. So Southwest Airlines has paused all corporate hiring. They have paused most summer internships. How much are you paying your summer interns that this is a headline that we need to make? That's my first question. But the company has been under a lot of pressure from activist investors to improve their returns, and they have done so with some strategic shifts on their business strategy. They're changing their boarding plan. I suspect that they are going to start marketing their flights on third-party sites like Expedia and Google Flights. I also suspect that some of the things that they haven't previously nickeled and dimed for are going to start nickel and diming, baggage fees, things along those lines, where a lot of these airlines are making an absolute killing. I would suspect that Southwest goes for. The question will be, well, do they just mimic every other large airline out there? Because they are the only large airline out there now to not have a first-class cabin, to not have those more luxury-type items that are clearly boosting profits right now at American, Delta, United, and others, even JetBlue. I don't know if they will shift quite that significantly, because it seems to me that
it's not their brand.
It's not their brand, and it's not what they
and their seats are pretty spacious and comfortable.
Yeah,
730. They fly 737.
That's been their other problem is they only fly Boeing.
Well, my point
planes.
is those are generously apportioned. That's not the right way to think about it, but you know what I mean. You get a lot of space on those. The seats are comfortable on Southwest
they're fine
and wide.
They're fine, but you can't pay. You can't buy a lay down seat. You can't do the things that Delta and others have really taken advantage over the last few years. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to have a bit of stack roulette for you next on the Financial Exchange.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
As technology continues to evolve, financial frauds and scams are becoming more regular and pose a serious threat to your finances. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and understanding how to identify these scams can reduce your risk of becoming a victim. Our new guide is called 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams, where we offer information that may help you become more aware of these issues and allow you to take the necessary precautions to avoid a big problem. From identity theft to Ponzi schemes and ransom attacks, the new guide will focus your attention on practical tips to protect your financial health. Call 800-393-4001 and request your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001 and ask for your free copy of 7 Common Financial Frauds and Scams at 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
The calendar is turned and the cold is here to stay. So now's the perfect time to plan that getaway to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Act now and take advantage of a special promotion to St. Croix. Experience a vibe like no other and receive a $250 per person airfare credit and a free hotel night when you book a 5-night minimum stay with any participating hotel before June 30th, 2025. St. Croix is known for its incredible history and spectacular architecture, along with world-class cuisine, incredible golf courses, and a wide variety of water sports. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. Experience a vibe like no other on the island of St. Croix. Go to visitusvi.com and use the code VIBE2025 for more information and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com and code VIBE2025.
This is Tucker Silva, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And we're talking about last-minute nursing home lessons that can help save your assets. What can be done last minute to save your home and your liquid assets when one spouse is entering the nursing home?
So with a married couple, you do have more options than as a single person, but with a married couple, your home is not at risk because the community spouse living in the home is allowed to keep the home. Doesn't matter the value, as long as they're living there, it's not countable and non-lienable. They also give the healthy spouse about $135,000 to keep. It's not a lot when you think of the big picture, but all the rest of the money would be at risk. But at least a quick last-minute way of protecting all those other dollars, all over and above that $135,000, would be to basically transfer the assets, those excess assets, to the community spouse, which, by the way, is not a disqualifying transfer, so no 5-year waiting period. And then once that community spouse gets those assets, depending on their age, they can buy what is known as a Medicaid qualifying annuity. These are special annuities. They convert the excess assets into an income stream, and then it's no longer an asset keeping the community spouse over assets. Then the community spouse and the sick spouse are under assets, and they're eligible for Medicaid.
Cushing & Dolan has written a brand new guide, especially for those of you who have put off doing your planning and are now faced with a last-minute nursing home situation. Request this brand new guide from Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Long-Term Care Planning for Procrastinators. 866-848-5699. Or if you prefer, you can simply go to their website, legalexchangeshow.com, and request it there.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Financial Exchange is proud of our partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's 5K will be here before you know it, so mark your calendars for Saturday, November 8th. We'll be keeping you updated on registration information in the coming weeks, but in the meantime, if you want to help our great American heroes right now, just visit dav5k.boston where you can make a donation today and support such programs as the Veterans Transportation Program, which takes injured vets to their medical appointments. That's dav5k.boston.
End of an era at Starbucks across the country as they will be rolling out some new policies of not just sitting there and not buying anything when you go to a Starbucks, which just seems like a very baseline nicety that you would have when visiting any business, but apparently people felt that, hey, it's Starbucks, so I'll take advantage of it and they won't care. No longer will you be able to just use the bathroom without buying anything. No longer will you be able to sit there for hours on end without making a single purchase or show up with your typewriter and write your manuscript without buying a coffee. They are going to set out some new rules, some new policies that they'll expect their people to enforce, including adding signs that would ban harassment, violence, threatening language outside. Who's bringing outside alcohol to a Starbucks?
Sorry.
What sort of degenerate are you where you got to pour alcohol into... Maybe they're not even buying anything to pour the alcohol into. Was that you, Tucker? Is that why you said sorry?
Apparently Mike has never heard of an Irish coffee.
Yeah, I make them at home like a normal adult. And panhandling in their stores, according to employees who viewed that notice. It's most certainly going to cause a fight somewhere and result in some problems. But honestly, like going to a Starbucks and sitting down has gotten to the point where I have no interest in it in some parts of the country because I know it's just going to be jam-packed with people that are going to be sitting there for hours on end. And I can't think of a worse environment to be in than somebody who's just sitting there only asking for water from the front desk of the Starbucks and sitting there for hours on end trying to get work done. That's just my absolute nightmare in terms of a shopping experience. Like, as another customer, I would intentionally avoid it because I'd be worried about that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
it is
good for you, Starbucks.
It is funny how with the turning of the political tide, all these pent-up frustrations, Zuckerberg gets a perm and starts talking about randomly punching people in the face. People are cheering him on, going on Joe Rogan shirtless, and they're all...
Who did he add to his board again? It was...
Dana White, right?
Dana White,
the
that's
IFC
right.
guy.
Yes,
So everybody's getting really
UFC,
macho and bulky. You get back to work, and you get out of Starbucks. It's almost like there's a little bit of, dad's back. There's a bit of a dad's back in charge zeitgeist feeling, whatever you want to call it, floating around out there in the ether. Is there a common thread? Are you guys detecting this?
I guess I am, yeah. Well, I think the common thread that I'm seeing is that companies in particular, are doing away with policies that have anything to do with ESG is not even the right word, but like overt friendliness and problem. This all came from the reason that you could use the Starbucks bathrooms even if you didn't buy anything was back in 2018 in a Philadelphia location. 2 black men went into one of the stores, tried to use the bathroom. They told them no. There was a big fight, and Starbucks literally closed their company for a day while they did employee training on sensitivity. And so that's the history of this whole problem here and why I think a lot of these companies are also rolling these things back. But yeah, it's the pendulum
all
swinging.
These touchy-feely things are, and companies, they couldn't wait.
Walmart's doing away with their DEI
right now, they don't have to be
stuff.
nice. They don't have to pretend to give a crap about anything anymore. And by the way, I'm in that camp. Milton Friedman a long time ago said companies should be concerned with generating profits. Full stop. End of story. Leave the other stuff to churches and community groups. So
I'm going to test
I think
this
it's probably
out.
healthy, but they're
whenever I really desperately need to go to the bathroom, I just grab my youngest child and walk in there and say, and I look at him and I go, is there any chance we can use your bathroom? So, and it works 100% of the time, regardless of whether I
leave the kid outside the bathroom.
Of course, Mr. Armstrong.
So I'm going to test this out with Starbucks and see if I need to go buy an espresso.
Mike, they know your face. I mean, you're maybe not the right candidate for testing this, but you do sense this swinging, as you say, of the pendulum, and companies who couldn't wait to get focused.
I have no issues going into any very popular fast food establishment using the bathroom if I have to use it and walking out. I've zero problem. But if you're sitting there hanging out at a Starbucks and like just drinking water, like, come on, what do you do? Buy a coffee, please.
This now has me on a different tangent. We brought our children out in, I think we were technically in Indiana, but it might have been Chicago. It was the Chicago area, actually, to one of those altitude trampoline parks where kids hang out for hours, they eat candy and drink sodas and jump on trampolines and generally injure themselves. If you haven't been to one yet, it's great, Mark. It's a fantastic way to watch your child get a torn ACL.
I think if I went to look at kids at a trampoline park,
you would have some problems.
Might get somebody,
you might be
I
sent
would hope
home.
it would get law enforcement's attention, to be honest.
Good point. So don't go.
So maybe take a niece or
But in any case, we were there. And we walked right in, and they were fortunate enough to disclose this to us ahead of time, that their bathrooms were broken. But
I would have walked right out.
But my question is, how as a business, that's that model? Like, okay, if you're a Starbucks or a gas station and your bathroom's broken, like,
see ya.
I'm willing to...
What does that even mean, the bathroom's broken?
It's not working.
They clearly had a clog that flooded everywhere.
Oh, okay. Somebody clogged the toilet.
There were a bunch of people standing there.
It's a nice way of saying somebody clogged the toilet.
Yes. Or there was some other backup sewage issue, but there was clearly an issue. And they didn't close their business. Your business is catering to little kids who can't hold it, and you're going to pump them with a bunch of slushies and sodas and not have functional bathrooms.
That's crazy.
It was the most disgusting thing that I had been to in quite some time. So we did not stay there for very long. But the entire thing was just... And I sat there and thought and watched, like, all right, I've seen that kid here for at least an hour. There's no way he's not peeing somewhere. What is happening here? So that was my disgusting experience of the holiday season. What do you have for us for Stack Roulette, Mark? Because I went on a wild tangent there that started with Starbucks and led to a trampoline park's bathrooms. So apologies to all those who were listening.
There's kind of a shocking story in the Wall Street Journal. They report that the Congressional Budget Office, which updates population growth estimates every year, is dramatically downgrading forecasts for population growth based on decreased fertility. These are long-term trends, but they seem to have accelerated. People having fewer kids, less immigration. The
So
upshot...
it does account for immigration. I wonder how big of an
Yeah.
adjustment they're making on the immigration side of things.
Some of it could be an overreaction to talk of more restrictive immigration policy. Hard to say, but we're looking at almost no population growth. I think that's a safe way to summarize. Up from not much to none over the next 30 years. And the reason that matters, if they're right, is that translates into lower overall economic growth, though not necessarily per capita economic growth. It's important to make that distinction. It doesn't mean people aren't getting wealthier. It just means overall the economy will not grow as quickly. And it also, of course, makes it much easier to support and sustain social insurance programs like Social Security and things like that, which rely
Easier
on...
or harder?
What did I say? It makes it harder. I should have said harder.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
At least based on the way that we fund our programs today.
If this is right, Mike, sea change in thinking on, anything actuarial is required in a serious ratcheting down of long-term growth expectations.
And I hope that if we decide to attack this as a problem, that we don't go for the let's try and make more berths, because that has never worked anywhere in the world. Quick break. We will be back at it in 22 hours here on the Financial Exchange. Markets have all turned negative, with the NASDAQ leading the way down off 0.4% as we close out the show. CPI inflation is tomorrow. Tune in, folks.